Okay, welcome everyone to the Vermont Historical Society's virtual roundtable today on collections conundrums. Super excited to be talking with you all today about any and all sort of things collections-wise that are vexing to you. It is a roundtable format, so happy to sort of hear about what your conundrums are, and then hopefully have some folks who have some experience to offer or some expertise that we can help work through or give ideas to how they might have solved it already, perhaps, or that we can all just be vexed together by our conundrums and continue to be in that state. So we have lots of wonderful people here. I do want to give one quick shout out to Rachel Onif, who's with the Vermont Historical Records Program, background as her name says, but also with the Collections Care and Conservation Alliance. And we may have one other or two other folks who pop on from there as well. And so hopefully we'll have some good expertise on here, but we'll also, I think, hopefully learn from each other. So again, for those of you who are popping on, we do have a fair number of folks on today. So the best way to sort of take the mic is to use the raise hand function, and I'll work towards calling on people. But you can also certainly put information, questions, whatever in the chat, links, anything that works from there, and I'll sort of keep an eye on both ways. So I'm just going to start to open the floor and see if anybody has a conundrum that they came here with today that they'd really like to talk about. I can't believe it.
Go ahead. So, conundrum.
All right.
Our conundrum is we have received recently a number of collections that are extended family items. And what I don't know what to do is to put like the genealogy lines of the various brothers and sisters and cousins and whether that in a fashion that would be understandable for semi-non-genealogists.
Okay, so if I'm sort of understanding it right, and that's I'm just going to call out Barbara from Stowe Historical. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat as well if you'd like. But so the question is basically like how to match folks within families or genealogies so that people can find them and their relations. Is that kind of what it's about?
Yeah, with artifacts and ephemera and things like that. Which generation did it come from? Whether it was lateral, all of that.
Okay. Great question. Anybody have sort of ways in which they work with extended family collections, or again, making those links in their artifacts and collections to families or genealogies? A quiet group so far today.
Eileen, I could jump in.
I'm gonna point to Rachel then, because this is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and hi Barbara, nice to see you. And do jump in if I'm not hearing you correctly, because I immediately went to family papers collections, my favorite type of archive. When I worked at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, we got a big grant to work on our family papers collections, which were these, Philadelphia families that we had like 10 generations. And of course, they're all named Benjamin Chew, right? So you have to find ways to disambiguate the different generations of people who share names, because families are notorious for recycling names and in homage to ancestors and all that good stuff. So we did find that figuring out what generation folks were in was important, and working through kind of a hierarchical from earliest generations documented in the archive to the present day was kind of the way to work through it, and usually associating birth and death dates, if known, with that name. And this is done in a finding aid or an inventory, and you can then link, you could use that format not just for papers, but if there's artifacts associated with specific individuals in the family, they could be listed with, under their name along with the papers. Does that make sense? And am I on the right track in terms of what you're asking about?
Yes, it does. And basically, I was intending to, once I got it all sorted out, to create a finding aid. But I'm still doing the generations and the siblings. And I just wondered if I'm going overboard, because I'm primarily a genealogist.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from that, and not everybody thinks like us.
This is true. I mean, you can always let go, or you could try to let go and just have the folder with other family members who I think are in this, in generation one. So you can do that. And of course, remember that archival arrangement and description is an iterative process. So you might have a descendant from that family come in, dive into those papers and go, oh my gosh, but I know who these people are. You might get further information down the line. So don't feel like you need to just nail down everybody and know exactly how they plug in and you've got a big family tree on the wall. You don't have to do that unless you're really enjoying yourself, and why not? But you could pull back a little bit and at least try to roughly get the generations sorted. And it's never a bad thing to let the researcher do a little bit of work on their own. They can try to figure it out too. And again, that starts a conversation, because then you can invite them to share what they've learned, or if they have additional insight into these records based on what they're bringing to it from what they know, you can then incorporate that into your description.
So folders.
You asked a question, Leslie.
Is that Leslie? Hey.
Oh, yes, there's also Wendy here.
Nice.
Hello.
There.
Hello.
Okay. Where?
Hey, Wendy.
Yeah, there you are. Okay. Right. So would you recommend the output, folders, with, or have generation one, generation two, sort of a stratification, a family tree in its, their various iterations can be helpful, a chart, but you don't have to do the whole 9 yards, but it's how to make it, to present it so it's accessible to the current and future researchers.
Yeah, often the first folder or two in a collection, a big family papers collection like that, would be any genealogies that came with the collection would be right up front.
Yeah.
And the processor would often create a genealogy as they went along, because you're doing that for your own sanity and to try to keep things straight.
Right.
And then that would become part of the finding aid, because as you say, Leslie, that's going to help people who then come to use the materials.
Okay,
Right.
we've got that.
Okay, I can send you a couple examples too, if that would be useful.
Sure, that always
Would
helps.
be. Yes, thank you.
Yep,
Yeah. Thank you. That was good.
good.
We're on our way.
You got it. You totally got this.
Solved. I like it. Great. Yeah, any other sort of conundrums or questions that people came with today that we can work through or offer some examples on? George, I think it looks like you have your hand up, but again, feel free to also use the raise hand function. I can't see everybody's screen. But George, it looks like you're probably not quite by the pool, but I'm sure warm.
Oh, it's nearby. So I am not too computer literate. I'm looking for that hand raised function on the bottom of my instructions, which where does one find it?
It's under reactions.
Okay. Well, anyway, I did not come here today to talk about this, but there seems to be plenty of time to introduce an obscure issue, and it may not even be appropriate for this gathering. But anyway, this is my situation. I am the chair of the Montpelier Historical Society, and the Vermont Historical Society put out a notice after the flood in July saying that they would like to collect documentation or whatever on the flood from wherever they could get it. And coincidentally, we did a couple of things. One thing was a video interviewing 20 different city officials and retail store owners about their experience at the flood. It's a 2-hour video, and it's on our local access channel in Montpelier. And I would like to pass it on to the Vermont Historical Society. So I have another one too, but let's just stop right there. The question is, how do I do that? Because, and I have a call in to Kate, and I talked to Marjorie before she retired. But what do they have? And Eileen may or may not, or Rachel will help us here. How do you want something like that? You don't want just a link, because a link can go away someday. What does the Vermont Historical Society have in the way of hard drives or whatever to receive such a document?
I did put the link in the chat for the digital archive that we have started for the 2023 flooding. So for any of you who have anything related to the flood that you'd like to share or know that you have in your community, you can feel free to upload items to that. I don't know the capacity, George. I would guess your file is probably too big to be uploaded with that. So I think it is going to be a question for Kate to figure out which way is the best way to transfer that file from you to our server network piece. So yeah, I think that would be, again, I think that's a great bit of information and material for the archive. And I think we'll just have Kate follow up on the best thing, maybe you bringing a copy here or getting it from public access and being downloaded here, but
I'll wait to hear from Kate. My other one is similar. In addition to what I just mentioned, which was a 2-hour video, we took pictures 1 month after the flood, 200 pictures of storefronts. And that's all it was storefronts, one storefront after the next, and they were ripped up and torn apart, and mud was still coming out the front door, and people were working, and it was a way of recording the snapshot in time 1 month after the flood. I talked to Marjorie about this, and she kind of took the textbook answer and kind of suggested that we had to label every photo. Now, every photo has got the same label. It's the same time, it's the same scene, it's a different storefront. But I'm just looking to do something other than submit 200 submissions and go through the work of doing that. And I'm wondering if it couldn't be done as a set.
yeah, so I would think that's something where we could work with like a spreadsheet. And then this might be a question to sort of offer out more generally as well, of how do people do labeling either files for digital files, but especially for photographs. Does anybody have some examples or some ways in which they do that sort of standardization of your file names for things like that to make them both standard but also individual? Yeah, Anne.
What our system is past perfect, and so we take the first item, and so we give it this year's number, which would be 2024, and then it would be .1, and then it would be 2024.2. And go on down the line that way, sort of numerically, where it's basically the same photograph or the same, not the same photograph, but the same list of, and if you had two pictures of the same storefront, it would be 2024.1A for the second or the third of the identical storefront.
So you're using it, you're labeling your files with your accession numbers essentially.
Yeah,
So there's no description, then
Then-
you have to go to Past Perfect or whatever you're using for a system to get information about the subject matter. So there's nothing in the title. That's in,
yes, there is. The first, would be storefront.
it would say storefront dot 2024.1.
No,
Or
it
something
would
like-
be the number first
Ah,
and then the subject.
I'm
Am I-
asking because the Moncton Historical Society is getting ready to digitize a lot of photographs. So this is a very timely question for us.
Great.
And I
Yeah.
guess my question was more on that description part, suggesting that the description is almost identical. The store name would be different, but everything else about the picture would be identical. But anyway, we'll work it out.
Comment on that from,
Bill.
at the Russell collection, what I do is basically the subject of the photograph, like Kelly stand. And then if there's a date that I know, I'll put the date in. And then the detailed information on that. So if the same photograph of the same building over 50 years, it'll be Kelly stand 1885, Kelly stand 1905, that type of thing to distinguish them, but it's the same subject. And then the accession number is something different. But if I'm doing a search, then I can find quickly the Kelly stand and get all the images for that and then have them in order if I know the dates. The other way I do it is locations. So organize things by location. And whatever the subheading is would be maybe Arlington, Vermont, streets, Old Mill Road, for example. And then I would get all the street views under that category for that. And they would all then be together for Old Mill Road in Arlington. And that works a lot better than using the accession numbers if I'm trying to find something. Researchers find it a much clearer way to understand the organization of the collection as well.
So I just want to acknowledge Groton. I think you guys have a new question or conundrum, so I'm not ignoring you, but I think we'll get you in turn. But Robin, did you have a comment on this part?
Just as Cindy from Moncton Historical was saying, we're about to do a lot of digitizing, but first we need to get a scanner, printer, copier. And I've been looking at them for a while and just wondering if there's any advice that people have. I know DPI is important. You need a DPI between, 600 and 1200. And just if anybody has a recommendation, there's a lot out there. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I'm gonna point that to Rachel in the aspect of whether she's got anything that we can link to, or anything like that. I think we've got some resources we can get to you. Stowe folks, again on photo labeling.
Hi.
Hi,
I'm the one that does the vast majority of entering our items into the computer in Past Perfect. I scan everything at 300. It's clear enough to print and enlarge, not huge, but we don't need to do that most of the time. And sometimes I've just found for 3D objects, I find just using my iPhone takes the best pictures and then I email it to us. And then from there, I save it. I keep all of my images by accession number in folders. So I have a folder for accessions 1958 to 2005, because that's when I started doing it, and then in a folder for each subsequent year. So right now, as I sit here, I'm working on obviously 2024. I'm working on 2 boxes of photographs right now, and they're not in any particular order. And so anybody looking for a subject matter, because I've been doing this now for 15 plus years and doing them as they come across my desk, there's no particular order to them except numerically, I feel is the best, because when I look at something, you know, am I going to interpret it the same way somebody else is and look for the right keywords? So by doing a keyword search in past perfect, you can write down all of the items that are of interest to you based on the number. You can go to, and I have pictures in past perfect, but I've also saved them to these folders I just mentioned. So if you needed to print something, you could go to those folders and print out the pictures or the locations. Now we moved 10 years ago from one building to another. So everything during that move got rather mixed up. We're trying to organize and maximize our storage facilities, and that's what Leslie is here to help us with. So boxes, they're not lined up in any particular order, as long as they've got the labels on them and past perfect says the location. It may be tedious to go to 6 different boxes to get all the materials that you want for a project, but numbers don't have an interpretation or an opinion, whereas subject words might, you know. For example, I'm just looking at a picture of Hurricane 1938 damage on Maple Street. Well, is that a Maple Street thing or is that a hurricane thing? I mean, where do you put it? If it's numerical, there's no question about that. And that's my take, and I do it pretty much the same way for my own personal collection.
My question is, if you're searching for a hurricane photograph, how does the accession number help you find a hurricane photograph?
Because I've done within past perfect, you put the number and what it is and whatnot. And then I put as much information as I possibly can within the description so that anybody, and I keep it simple. I don't use what's it called? The full
Lexicon?
view. I just go to the simple one and I put all of the information into the description box so that anybody who is not familiar with using past perfect can just do a keyword search and it's all in one place for that item. You know, they're not looking in the location box. They don't have to know anything about past perfect except to go to keyword search and put in their words.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So it's organized by keyword rather than by numbers. Numbers are just
No,
not at
ancillary.
all. Not at all.
No.
It's all by numbers, but if you want to find Hurricane of 1938, you go on to past perfect, you do a keyword search, Hurricane 1938, and you'll get objects, you'll get photographs, you'll get whatever we've got where the description includes the words Hurricane 1938.
Right.
And that past perfect entry will say where the location is.
Right, so you're
Right.
you're storing by number, but
Yeah.
so you have to go to your essentially past perfect in order to get 6 numbers, and then you
Sure.
might go to 6 locations to find those
Correct.
photographs. Okay,
That is correct.
That's what I figured, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go into,
We can talk about it.
Yeah.
Then there's no judgment that way.
On that, because we're doing a Google search thing on the website now.
but that's different.
Right, I know, so.
It depends on how you want to store the digital.
Alright.
Right.
Yeah, I think, again, a lot of things as it relates to both internal controls.
I don't know.
So, as Bill was talking about the public or the researchers and how they might be accessing or finding out the information that they want. So I think those are some really good
Yeah.
options for thinking about organizing. And then I think, again, we're getting into both physical as in paper or glass plates or whatever, but also born digital, which we are now getting into as George pointed out. And what does that mean? And how do we do those the same or different
Yeah, boards.
for that?
Like that.
So I'm gonna finally sort of call on the Groton folks and see what they have for a question.
Hi. So that, yeah, in regards, in regards to this photographing thing or photography, the organization of photography, we're starting to work with Google search on our website, which is where our photographs live. And so I'm wondering about how Google search finds these subjects I know you've got a program called Past Perfect that you're using. We're not using that. So is anybody doing any kind of cataloging of their photographs by writing captions and titles and relying on Google search to find them? That's one question related to what you're talking about. And then I think our main subject that we're thinking about right now is the preservation of our textiles. And so, was your question regarding that, Phyllis?
Yes, it is. We have really quite a nice collection of clothing in our collection. And I was wondering if there's anyone on staff there who has special experience or training in textiles and clothing storage and preservation. I'd love to get in touch with someone and maybe if they had time, even have them come over and look at what we have.
Those are our thoughts, our questions.
Great. So I was going to point to the textiles. We certainly do. And again, this is some place where either VHS or the Collections Care and Conservation Alliance may be able to assist. So I can follow up with you guys with some resources and some potential ideas for what we can do for that with you guys. And I think the Google search, that's a good question. Does anybody sort of integrate any of their collections or finding aids or anything else within their website and kind of use Google to do keyword searching for them?
Or use Omeka. Does anyone use Omeka for their digital content storage is the other, I guess, second part of that.
Okay.
What is Omeka?
Right.
It's an open source content management system for digital collections.
Oh.
Eileen, I can jump in there on Omeka. I'm kind of lurking here. Hi, Steve Perkins. I'm the director of the Vermont Historical Society. Currently, VHS uses Omeka to manage the Digital Vermont, which is our digital archive. It's just a very, very small piece of our digital collections. It is, as you said, open source, so it can be programmed and used, but it does need a little bit of knowledge to bring an instance of it available on your own website. The crowdsourced program, both our COVID collection project and the flood archive project that George mentioned, are both run by an Omeka engine. And so as people upload things and enter them, that metadata automatically finds its way into the database. So it's a version of a cataloging system. I know our librarians who aren't on this call could probably discuss with some folks who want to use Omeka about the pluses and minuses of us using it VHS. We'll probably be moving more towards an off-the-rack system as we move forward to help consolidate all of our various strands into one place.
Sarah, are we still on? So there was a lot of conversation about genealogy in the beginning. And we have a genealogy, we have one now, who's used Brother's Keeper for many years. I think there were two that our genealogists used, and they're both, well, one just passed away, the other one is in his 90s. And so we're wondering, when you get into one of these programs, how you make them available in the world now. Like we have an enormous genealogical database, but the only way to get to it is through Brother's Keeper. I mean, it's been kept up to date, but how do you convert something like maybe this past perfect? How do you mesh that with technology as it changes? So, you know, people can find it.
Hi, it's Barbara Bayraw again. I'm gonna respond to that. It's a difficult situation. And I work part-time as a volunteer at the Vermont Genealogy Library over in Essex. And we have a constant discussion of how to share. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I would suggest you contact the library and maybe some of the people who have worked with various public website genealogies could help you. We do have a website over there, and there are people in the building Tuesday from 2 to 9 and Saturday 10 to 4. But if you send them an email, they'll get back to you. And that's
Who an email?
Pardon?
Who would I send an email to specifically? Sorry, I just don't know.
Just go to their website and you'll find an email address. I also volunteer at that
The
library.
Vermont Historical Society Library?
No, Vermont Genealogy Library. It's in Essex.
The Genealogy Library in Essex. Okay.
Yeah, it's VTGENLIB.org. Vermont VTGENLIB.org.
Okay.
I also happen to use Brother's Keeper personally for my personal genealogy, and I have like 100,000 names in there because of various projects I've worked on over the years. I think the question is like how you've got this massive amount of data. You know, I would recommend that you think about something like uploading the data like to familysearch.org or something like that, because that's free for people to access. You know, a lot of like the Glover Historical Society with whom I'm affiliated loosely, they have theirs on Ancestry. Yeah, but that's a paid site, and you know, not everyone has access. The other, that's one idea. Of course, the other idea is to generate a lot of like register reports and upload PDFs to your website. I don't know, but probably other people have other ideas.
Yeah, we've been thinking about this for a while. The Ancestry is enough. We had two genealogists. One of them has recently passed away, and as I say, the other one is in his 90s. One used Brother's Keeper and the other one used Ancestry. And so they're massive with pictures and wonderful stories. But we're really like, how do we keep this and how do we make it so that, you know, somebody else can run it and get to it? So I guess I will reach out to the genealogy library in Essex and see what suggestions they have. Yeah, I mean, it's sad to have all that information held by in one little, pinch cut place.
Oh, yeah, you want to definitely make it accessible, preservable and accessible.
Right.
So that's why
Yeah.
people use all these web-based genealogy programs now, rather than things that live on your computer, as Brothers Keeper does.
Right. So it's just getting it from Brothers Keeper to a website.
That's completely doable.
Okay.
There's a common, I forgot what it's called, Gen something or other. Yeah. It's a standard file format that allows you to transfer from one platform to another.
Okay.
That was gonna be my question, is it's like .gen, right? It's like
That's right.
it's its own file format, so.
Yeah, GEDCOM.
GEDCOM, that's it,
GEDCOM,
that's it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, okay,
And Brothers Keeper supports that.
cool. And you can just upload that into any other, okay. For the most part.
Yeah, there'll be some wrinkles, but the theoretical answer is yes.
Right.
So does the same thing come into play for Past Perfect?
Yes, great. She's terrific.
So I have a question from my collection here in Arlington. We don't have a great budget to invest in something like Past Perfect. Are there other better, low cost, reasonably free programs that do similar type of cataloging?
We're just using Excel.
Yeah.
Yes, anybody else? We transferred from Past Perfect to something called Catalog It in the last couple years,
Yep.
which is, it can be less expensive. We got one that fit our needs, so it's a little bit more robust. But so far it seems to be working well for us. So I
Okay.
think that's another option. I'll put the link in there. But yeah, besides Excel or Past Perfect, anybody using anything else for software right now for their collections databases?
Yeah, there used to be a couple free ones out there. I think archive.com was one that seemed to have passed or gone to expense subscription. So the catalog, it's on my list.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, there are definitely a couple of open source ones that, again, as you say, they're open source in some ways, and then some have to pay.
yeah.
Adrian, I'm gonna point to you first, just because you've been hanging out there with your hand raised for a while, and then get to Mike and Sandy with their comments.
Okay, thank you. My question is textile related. So I have a room full of textiles, and I have recently found some like clothes moths in there. But I've only caught them in traps. I haven't seen them actually, I don't know where they're coming from. Like, so does anyone have ideas for how do I narrow down? It's a whole room full of fabric. Everything's wrapped up in cupboards and in drawers and in boxes. So other than like, I don't know, like, what am I looking for? And how do I narrow down where they're at? Because it's winter, I'm assuming they're less active. I'd like to find them before the attic heats up in the summer and they all crawl out.
Do you have furs in the collection, Adrian?
No, I think we got rid of all the furs.
Okay, because that would be a first place to look.
Right. Well, they weren't there last summer. We had a window repair in the fall, and that's when they appeared. So I had never seen them in there in any of my traps before that. Do you use are there lures? Would that be an option to use like a pheromone lure of some kind to try to catch them?
I
Or do
imagine your
everything?
traps might have some lure capability within them.
The ones I'm using are just sticky.
They're sticky. They've not. Okay, yeah. So get some pheromones. Yeah, and you could try. I don't know how many boxes you have, but you could try to like sneak up on them and open a box really quickly and see if you see anybody. But I did like spot.
Pull open drawers like real fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I would continue to do a sort of monitoring and try to get them to come out to you because they are going to be tricky to find.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do other
the
people
problem is
know
that-
about other fabrics that they might be found in?
They started as worms, so that's the problem is caterpillars and you know,
Right.
we catch the moths, but the moths have come somewhere. Here's what I'm hoping for you is that the window was open and the moths flew in and got stuck in your sticky trap and didn't have time to lay eggs in the textile collection. So it's very hard to find the eggs. It's like looking for nits in your hair. From a lice infestation. So kind of the low cheap option is to keep the traps out and see if you catch any moths, knowing that you've now gone through one whole life cycle. You know, the other is to freeze the entire collection.
Right.
I don't know how big your collection
Well, we have
is.
like over 75 bed quilts that are in there, and that's like a small part of the collection.
Well, they probably aren't in quilts.
Oh, the quilts are all like individually wrapped. They might be in the quilts. I don't know.
Moths don't really like cotton.
Some of the quilts are older. They have wool and silk. Wow.
They'll get into those.
Yeah.
Adrian?
Okay. Yeah.
This is Phyllis in Groton. My only thought is that I took a workshop 2 years ago with Teresa, and she suggested storing all your wool separately and away from everything else. We haven't managed to do that yet, but I think, it would be a good idea. And I'm also thinking that maybe last summer's heat and humidity encouraged the growth of the insect egg cases things. I know I last summer found some in some stored military uniforms, and I had never seen any there before. So I wonder if the weather has something to do with it.
Okay, like they were dormant and they just kind of got warm enough and wet enough that they.
I don't know, but they do like wool.
Okay, so maybe if I do like a search for all my wool objects and then start there.
That's a big...
Well, freedom.
That's a good idea. Okay.
So Mike, I think you had your hand up next. Yeah.
She seems pretty popular.
Still on mute. Not Mike, whoever.
Okay, I'm actually using my husband's
I was
computer.
gonna say, I was like, it's not Mike.
Tired. I'm new at all of this. I'm just a volunteer with the Chester, Vermont Historical Society. We have a very low budget, so we try to use a lot of free sites. And one of our projects, and I'm wondering if this is worthwhile. So people have mentioned family search. We have used Facebook. Once we dig these boxes out and we identify the people and we get their stories, we'd like to share it because we kind of feel like they've been in boxes for 50 or 60 years. No one has seen it, and we want to get it out there. So we've been using all the free sites. And are your sites that you've mentioned today past perfect? How expensive are these? And is
Very expensive.
They are expensive? And is there a way that we've got a lot of digital pictures and stories right now on Facebook, and where do we go with that? How do we make sure if Facebook goes away that it's stored somewhere? Those would be my questions.
Aren't there ways to download your data from Facebook? I think you can, like, I haven't tried this before, but I think that you can take a snapshot of what you have in Facebook and download it. I don't know what digital platform would then be able to read it or how, like, what the format would look like. Like I said, I've never tried it, but I think there is some sort of export from Facebook. There is for other social media platforms. Like, I think you can, but
I
that's
mean,
definitely a
Facebook
space,
seems
right?
like a brave, bold, smart move. Facebook's not going anywhere. It's a big, huge company. It's probably safer than our situation where we've got this one computer that's got all this information on it. I think that is a great idea. Why not believe in Facebook?
No, you can.
Where do your actual digital images live though? Just on Facebook? I mean, do you have like a Google Drive or something like that? Google also being a huge company.
Right. As I said, we're very low budget, so.
That's free.
what
Google Drive
happens-
is free.
Oh, okay. I bring a box of photos to my home. I have a very inexpensive HP scanner. I scan them. They live on my computer for a short time until I post them up to Facebook. And I really don't want them on my personal computer in case my computer crashes. So I need to find a place that's not expensive.
Put them on Google Drive.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
storing on Google Drive.
Okay,
Yeah.
will
Yep.
do.
Doesn't Facebook own the photos once you upload them? Does Facebook do that?
I'm sure they can use them, but these are just Chester people. There's nobody famous that you could, make any money off of having their image. So it's basically, we were having very good luck sharing people that lived here for the last 200 years. Family members from all over the country are finding their way to our site, enjoying the pictures, enjoying the story, and sometimes adding to it.
There's the question of the storage of the digital files for ongoing preservation, and then the using Facebook for access. It's kind of like, at least from when I put my librarian and preservationist hat on, I can see how Facebook would be really great for connecting people to the content, but you would still, in my mind, want to have the files in a additional location outside of sort of a proprietary platform for viewing. That would be my take.
Yeah, like Google.
Correct.
Right. And I suppose anybody who wants to find it on Facebook has to be on Facebook.
It's true.
So,
The other thing we've been doing is we have some volunteers that will take that information and those pictures, and we're using Find a Grave. That's also a free site that people can use, and they're also uploading to Family Search, which is another free search that people can use. So we're trying to share what we have very economically.
Omeka.
Those are two.
Omeka has a free version up to so many gigabytes, maybe 2. And it is for exhibitions, or you could have selected exhibits online. If you have a website, you could link to it from your website. And as said before, Vermont Historical Society uses it, but they have a stronger version of it with a lot of support, which is kind of a different animal, I think, than the free and smaller subscriber versions. But that is one way to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, Sandy.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So there's a couple of things that you might be interested in. For Facebook groups, I help administer Revolutionary War research as well as Loyalist in-depth study. So any of those items, articles that you think may be of interest to members, post them up there. And I'm also trying to get people to sit there. If you do a little Google map, like pinpoint where your society is, like your hard location is, to something that somebody will know, like a city or a town, just so people like to just try and get more people passing through one way or the other. Like I have the Vermont Historical Society, I've referenced you a couple of times in Revolutionary War research, because I like the way you categorize, or like you divided up your time frames. Like somebody worked hard during COVID to organize it, and it's appreciated.
Thank you.
And another thing is, I've just recently been accepted to Daughters of the American Revolution with the great Choptank Parish, which is Maryland. And there's a possibility that we might start trying to do it as a chapter to gather Bible records. So if you've got the Bible records, and then they would go up onto the DAR site. But if someone's interested in that too, they can always contact me or reach out to the great Choptank Parish in Maryland for DAR.
Great, thank you. We're getting towards the end of one, so I just want to get to Sandy Doyle, who's had her hand up again for a while, and just make sure we get to talk about what Sandy wanted to talk about.
This is just on the cataloging. I guess our goal this year is just to try to document everything that we have in the house in some fashion. And after looking at a number of programs, decided to go with the Catalog It program. And I am not the one that's entering data, but I have viewed a lot of it, and it's awesome. And we are able to create a couple of groups of photos that we have put on the Catalog It Hub, so that anybody that happens to go to the hub, whoever they may be, can look things up, and we hope to do more of that. Now, for us, the program that we're in is actually going to cost us $450 for a year, which, you know, that may be the only thing we do in our budget, is to keep that up to date so that we can get this stuff documented. But I just wanted to throw that out there. That's Chelsea Historical Society. And yeah, we also have a small budget. But anyway, it's one way of just preserving what we have. And I guess after listening to everything here, my question will be, what if we can't?
Are you there?
I am. What if we can't afford it any longer?
What happened?
Yeah, I think that's a really intriguing question, as far as both for continuing to afford technology, but also transferring, as we're talking about, sort of transferring technology to sort of the next iteration and keeping up with it, and how we keep doing that. Stowe again. Not. You guys are still muted, Stowe.
I don't know how to raise my hand on the thing. About 8 years ago, I think, I heard one society or museum that whenever somebody came to take a photocopy, it was also scanned. So then they were starting to get their paper scanned, but the person was still paying for the photocopier fee.
There you go. Wendy, Stowe. You're still muted.
Hi. In response to Sandra's question about and paying 400 and change a year, does she really mean a year? I have been accessioning items on the computer. I'm just a volunteer, so I'm not here every day, certainly, but I've been doing it for 15 or more years, no, almost 20. And I'm nowhere near done. And if that in fact is per year, that's a lot of money. Consider Past Perfect. It's a little more upfront, but it's a one-time charge till they get to the point where they do a major upgrade, and then you will have to pay again, but it will not be a full price. But the $400 a year is an awful lot. I would reconsider that for an ongoing expense. because it's going to take you more than a week or two to enter everything. And
I think we're up to like 1,500 items now, so I can appreciate what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's, again, that good question when we're looking at technology and software and sort of what are the options, what do we get from each thing and what works for your organization, and how to do that, and keep it working for you, in sort of all senses of the word. And that's, yeah, I think that's one of the best things and one of the difficulties about all these discussions is what works for one society may not work for another one depending on what their needs are. And so that's part of making these choices and hopefully not getting too far down the road with something that's not working for you. Groton again.
I just have two questions. One, is it possible to share the links that were shared in this in the chat by email? Because it's hard to keep track of everything. And then my second question is for Moncton. I'm wondering, I believe you said that you used Excel or Google Sheets to do your cataloging. I'd love to, if you have an example, I'd love to see a sample page of how you set your self up. Thank you.
Sure. I'll put my email address in the chat and you can email me and I'm happy to share.
Great. Thank you.
And yeah, so you after this is done, I'll be sending out an email to everybody who registered with the link for the recording for those of folks who registered who couldn't make it live today. And then I'll also gather all of the links and bits of information that were put in the chat just so that we all, everybody can have that as well. Pat has their hand up.
Hi, I just wanted to comment that in Hartford, we use Musark. We went from Excel to Musark. It has a price. I have no idea what it is. I don't think it's great. And we have all our photographs and other things on the cloud in Dropbox.
Great, thank you. Another option. George.
Yes. These two comments come about from comments other people have made. One is low budget. We're low budget. Most everybody is low budget. And dues are an important part of our income. We have low dues so that we are nice to people and can attract people, and our basic dues are $10. But we also offer an option of paying 20 or 50 or 100. And we get some 20s and 50s and 100. And so that's just really easy money. And it's an easy ask because it's strictly voluntary. So that's a comment about low budget. And the other comment is about Facebook. We know lots of people are kind of not crazy about Facebook. I'm a Facebook nut, and let me suggest to many of you that might not know, there's some fantastic historical sites on Facebook. Montpelier has two very, very good ones. Burlington has two fantastic ones. And numbers of other towns. Winooski, I mean, I'm probably 6 or 8 cabin. I'm on all kinds of towns. And so I think it's an excellent source of historical information and interesting things to look at. So anyway, I would be a Facebook salesman.
George, come join us in Moncton.
I will.
Moncton Historical.
And Chester, I'm going to look up Chester's. I'll look up.
Yeah,
Moncton.
Chester has a nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love Facebook.
Yes.
Moncton Museum and Historical Society.
Waterbury is very active on social media. We have Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, we've reached the 1 o'clock hour, so I'm going to sort of officially wrap it up. I think, again, it's been some wonderful discussions, and I appreciate everybody bringing both sort of some of their issues and, again, some of the great sharing of what everyone's doing, which I think really helps us. Again, even if we don't have the exact answers, we can hopefully get some new ideas or know that we're all kind of trying to figure this out as we can. So again, I'll be sending a link probably tomorrow for the recording and with some of the links that we've shared in the chat. I did just want to note, if you didn't happen to see in the chat, Rachel, Onuf had to head out, but the Vermont Historical Records Program is currently having their office hours at 1 o'clock. So if you want to hop right onto another Zoom and talk all things archives and historical records and get some more advice from them directly, you can certainly do that. And then I also wanted to let you know, again, our next virtual roundtable will be March 26th, which will be on what we're calling Admin 101. So we'll talk hopefully about things like bylaws and all those thrilling things that we all have to deal with. But feel free, hope you'll all join us for that. Thanks again, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.